Okay, so on to the specs. I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on each spec because, I mean, yeah, like, there's just, almost exactly 3 times as many specs as there are classes. So we're just going to go a little bit faster. We will go from all 3 specs right away. So, again, I'll do a way more accurate version of this later that's much longer, where I speak to people from the classes to give me their final take. We have not talked about blood in a while. When I'm thinking about blood, it's like, and again, we might move these around. Like, for example, I might initially put blood DK in like B tier, but then I'm like going through the other ones later. I'm like, wait, that's actually a little bit better than this. And like the list will make itself work over time. So you grab Heart Strike, grab this stuff. You don't want this. Apparently before you like didn't want the second charge of Blood Boil. You get Blood Fortification, this, haste, whatever, and then you like go down at the bottom of the tree when you have 11 points, just to like, I'm not going to focus on what you choose up here as much. I'm just going to make sure I unlock every capstone, and then I'm just going to move on. I don't think a lot of the stuff I'm choosing is actually correct. You have access to your 4-piece here, which feels good. It's kind of weird with DKs. Again, current 4-piece is so good, and I think this is a nerfed version of it or a slightly nerfed version of it, but it does become way more Heart Strike spammy. I don't know if it's as fun to actually live on this class with this setup, but it is very powerful, and I think you'd prefer... Would a player prefer power over fun? I think it depends, but that is an interesting question. Because, like, reality is, if your class is really fun, that's awesome, but, like, if it stinks, you're sad. So, I don't know, it's weird. And then you have, like, Gorfine's Grasp, and then, like, Red Thirst, which is really powerful, and then Unquenchable Thirst doesn't seem as good, although it could be good, especially when you have reduction and like if it does a lot of healing or a lot of damage, I mean. And then you have access to Bone Storm or Purg, but Purg is behind Gorfine's Grasp, Tightening Grasp. Like, that's just a weird thing to invest into, right? Like, think about other trees where like your thing is right under it. I don't know. I don't think it's out of the question that Gorfine's Grasp could also be in the DK class tree as well. I don't see why that couldn't come back. It could even replace A-Bomb's Limb. Right? Just as something that all the specs have access to. I'm going to say Blood DK, solid B. Not insane, not bad. Needs work, pathing issues, weird gameplay things where, like, to be optimal, I think some of the lists didn't have the second charge of Blood Boil, and while you don't need that, it does seem like a very weird... Like, when was the last time you played DK without 2 charges of Blood Boil? Like, I don't know. I think B is, like, right about right. Let's move on. Frost DK. Frost DK, again, one of my favorite specs in the game, at least when breath is relevant. They were one of the first trees released, and they did a good job of separating the entire tree into, basically single target and AoE. The entire left side of the tree is almost exclusively single target, and the entire right side of the tree is basically every OP, like AoE or cleave trait you've had in the past. And then it's just all combined together with a second charge of Empowering Rune Weapon. The DPS potential of this in an AoE scenario is quite large. It also comes with Chill Streak to amplify their 2 target damage. They also get Cold Heart, but amplified by the class tree, giving them Proliferating Chill, which will mean that Cold Heart is now 2 target damage, which is already pretty powerful. They get their whole build they want to play now with Breath, with also grabbing Rage of the Frozen Champion. You can obviously like move a few points out of here in a lot of other cases, and to swap it to single target, you make like a few changes over here on the left. The only difference is there's not a lot of choice. It's like you feel like you're only ever going to swap like 2 or 3 nodes on this tree based on the encounter and what Frost is already good at. But man, are they giving you a lot of combos you have not had before. I want to say Frost is an easy A. It's not S, but I think Frost is great. Moving on to Unholy. I think Unholy is... Unholy's weird. They definitely said something like Unholy is going through like a midlife crisis. Like, we're trying to figure out Unholy. They got a lot of feedback that the wound build like did not feel really good. Unholy. As we move into future builds, want to address 2 main issues heard about the community. The first issue of cooldown desyncs by a few talents, and secondly, want to overall structure of Unholy talent layout. So they did do the cooldown thing already. And it says some changes to expect in a future alpha build. I'm not sure how many of these happened. There's just like a massive post about it. I remember reading something else too. I swear I remember reading something like Oh, Unholy did not get the CD thing yet? Okay, so Unholy is like... Let's make it its own tier. Can't rate yet. Yeah, they said they're going to do a bunch of things. They haven't done them yet. It's been a while, too. Okay, moving on. To the next class on here, which is Druid. Starting with Balance. I'm not a Balance Druid super genius. I know that they said there's a lot of cool potential options at the bottom of their tree where they have potentially increased power. One thing they've all pointed out that is a problem is to get the really cool AoE stuff, you have to pick a talent that makes you not AoE as much because it puts your spammable AoE on a cooldown. Feel like that alone is like very bad, but the rest of it seems like they have cool things and they're pretty happy with a lot of the potential options they have. So I don't know. What are other weird things? It's been so long since we've talked about this. Cool options, a lot of bad pathing. Okay. So it's savable, but currently not set up. Let's put it in C. Let's say Balanced Druid is C. Feral Druid. Oh boy. Currently, if you play a Feral Druid without selecting any of these Berserk talents, your Berserk actually just says, go Berserk for 20 seconds and nothing else. You have to select like multiple things on your tree just to get your same cooldown. They're not really fixing any of the issues that Feral currently has. It's kind of the same thing. It just seems really underutilized. People aren't really happy with it. Hashtag save Feral. Hashtag buff and make dots good again. Pretty sure Feral's swamp ass. Is there a Feral in here that would make the argument that it's not actually that bad? I have heard universal dislike for this tree. Feral is actually worse than it was pre-talent tree. Yeah, okay. Worst one, maybe the worst one in the game. Moving on, Guardian. This is weird. You like have almost no buttons in your spell book, but I feel like Guardian still has like pretty powerful burst. You have like a lot of defensive options. You get Rage of the Sleeper back, although you don't get the leech portion of it. I don't think it's that bad. You get like pulverize. Like I remember talking about this in a raid build being like pretty good. I think it's just mid. I don't think it's like insane. It's just mid. It's definitely not bad. The Guardian one isn't bad. Resto Druid. I have 0 takes on this tree. I don't even remember what the fuck they said. Just Resto Druids. Tell me what's going on here. Give me some numbers. C and B. All right. No questions asked. Moving on. I'm not going to give you a bunch of... I'm not just going to make up a bunch of takes on the spot. So let's... All right. Devastation Evoker. This is weird. So they've massively changed their tree. They have added some cool abilities. Shattering Star looks... And a lot of... I'm not going to spend too much time on this because a lot of people can't relate to this. And a lot of people haven't played this version because Season 4 has come out since they've changed this. And people are playing Season 4 instead of Alpha, largely. Certainly way less than before. I don't really think Iridescence is very fun. It still seems like Feed the Flames and Ever Burning Flame are underutilized and underrealized. This button does no damage. That's not like a tree thing. It's more of a tuning thing. It's certainly a fine ability. It's just not tuned well. I like the new difference of the way that Essence Bursts are actually buffing your damage in Dragon Rage and that you actually want to cast your Empower abilities in Dragon Rage now with this talent. But again, it's like Evoker. Like, Evoker is what it is. It's also really not completed yet. And, like, Evoker is the talent tree. Talent trees are Evokers, and Evoker is talent tree. Evoker has only existed with these talent trees, so it's hard to tell. I honestly am just going to put in, like, can't rate yet. I feel like this is going to majorly change. I think the capstones are super lame. They're going to get reworked. I don't even think there's a lot to look at here. Preservation. As far as I know, they've made a bunch of really good changes to this tree, and I believe there's a lot of power in this tree. Now, one thing that would make... the big question with Preservation Evoker is not any of the abilities they have, because they apparently play pretty well. Big problem is they have 25-yard range. But again, class talent tree. The talent tree doesn't address that, but also maybe it isn't supposed to. 25-yard healer might be unviable, like actually. And if that's the case, then... that's a totally separate thing, but I've heard that the preservation tree is pretty lit, so I'm going to put that up here. I've heard it's pretty good. Hunter. Beastmaster. I think Beastmaster is excellent. Good AoE options. They've made really good changes, like especially extending the duration of Beast Cleave and kind of putting stuff in different spots. They're still working on tuning of it, but they took a dead part of the bottom left tree and put a bunch of Dire Beast talents in its row. and they're all connected to each other, and they all interact with Dire Beast. I think it comes up with a cool playstyle that doesn't currently exist from Brewmaster right now. I think it's A. I don't think it's S. I think it's A. Moving on, Marksman Hunter. Man, I really feel like this is a can't rate yet. It's honestly changing every single week, and every week there are new problems, and then they fix the problems from the previous week, but create new ones. It's on the come up big time, but it's just so different, and I think it's close to being good. Like I said, I would be willing to bet that all the hunter trees are very good going into the expansion. I have a lot of faith in the feedback and communication they're getting. So I'm gonna put it can't rate yet, but probably good. And then survival. Honestly, I think this class tree blew the fuck up the last 2 times that they worked on it. It had a lot of 3-point nodes. They removed basically all of them. And it had a very under-realized, not yet implemented cooldown setup. But now their cooldown setup is in a way where in single target, you'll take both of these buttons. Yeah, glue, it's like the past tense of glow. Similar to like the past tense of blind is blound. So you would take Coordinated Assault all the way down, and then you take Spearhead all the way down. And you're going to be rotating between 2 different CDs that use different buttons in each CD, and each one of them reduces the cooldown or extends the cooldown. Sorry, it extends the cooldown of the cooldown you're using. No other class in the game plays like that, actually. It's completely unique. I think it's potentially really interesting. It's a different take on survival, and they also gave them access to not only the bomb generation that they have now, but they made it much more deterministic and way less RNG. And I feel like it's probably a solid B now, and it used to be swamp ass. So survival was hard on the come up. I think it's probably B. I don't know where to rate it against the rest of this stuff. Isn't the past tense of blind just blinded? No, it's blound. All right, putting survival in B. I don't really care about the order too much because I don't know enough about Resto Druid. Okay, moving on. Mage. Oh boy. Arcane. Arcane Orb is at the bottom of the tree. Seems like a big problem. All their nodes that they want to do the same thing are spread out amongst the tree. Mana Gem exists at the same capstone level as Evocation, but Evocation is better in every single scenario. In almost all scenarios, they take the same talents. Seems bad. Not going to spend a lot of time. Pretty sure Arcane Mage is like a nice, like, D. Maybe C. Arcane Mage wasn't nearly as bad as Frost. I think it's probably D. I don't think it's without saving, though. I just wish Nether Tempest had more viability in multi-target scenarios. I wish Arcane Orb was basically given to you for free, because currently you can't really get it. It's definitely not good. Yeah, love D, chat. You know what it is. Fire. Moving down. Fire didn't seem nearly as bad. Fire kind of goes down, gets the stuff it's had. It has the Sun King element. It has... I love this choice node between Kindling and Fiery Rush, and don't be like, well, you know, now we have both and we got to choose. They're going to tune these classes. Like, regardless of whatever your class looks like, it's going to get tuned, and it's going to be, like, pretty close in, like, a single target environment. It's always been the case. There's always outliers, but generally speaking, it's close. If your class is losing something that it used to have both of, they're probably doubling down on each one. So Kindling and Fiery Rush will each be individually more powerful, since you won't have both of them. That's the only thing that makes sense. So you choose between a super powerful 2-minute or Giga CDR or 1-minute combustion or something, whatever. I think this is a really good choice node. I wish more classes actually had this choice because they could transform themselves into fit different fight scenarios and different dungeon scenarios. I don't think it's an A. I also think like the AoE part of this tree is super under-realized when we were talking about it. Also, improved Blazing Barrier makes no sense for PvP or PvE. So there's a couple of bad nodes that make it from being an A tier. I think it's a solid B. Fire Mage. Moving on. Frost Mage. This tree is bad. They spend most of the tree giving you back your core functionality as Frost. Frost, while I actually like Frost as a spec, it's very basic, and it's kind of always been the same thing. So Blizzard did not choose to be creative with the spec, which they could have been. They kind of just gave it all the stuff it had, and they're like, here, you know, you can pick some new combos. Here's just all the things you have. But it didn't really solve anything. Without even needing to read them, the fact that there are fucking 4 Icy Veins nodes here that you have to spend 6 points on to get your build. It's really restrictive. The only thing they added that I think is really cool is Snowstorm, where Cone of Cold becomes a pretty big on use like damage burst in AoE. I think that's really fun. It's definitely the worst mage tree. I don't know if it's worse than Arcane. It's certainly better than Feral. 3-point nodes in the middle. It didn't feel bad to play on Alpha, honestly. But I feel like... Oh, yeah, also Splitting Ice is, like, way out of the way. Yeah, it's a really weird... just put it down here. Probably better than Arcane. Worse than Arcane? Yeah. I don't think it's ass. I don't think it's all the way down with Feral. Paladin. Holy Paladin. Lot of pathing issues. Lot of weak talents. Kind of an under-realized casting section of the capstone level. Beacon stuff is very spread out. I'm going to go Holy Paladin is probably D, just above Arcane Mage, maybe low C. But we'll leave it at D for now. Red Paladin. A lot of Red Paladins wanted to maybe see a change in playstyle. The whole, like, choosing between whether to spend your finisher on AoE or single target thing is just getting old. They do have a couple of cool 1-minute builds. They added some, like, Consecration AoE tech. I think the biggest issue with Ret actually lies in the class tree and the way that the auras work. At least as far as their viability in the expansion. The Ret Paladins did not seem super happy with this tree, and it's received 0 changes. But I don't remember them saying it was really bad. I'm going to say Ret's probably a low C. I think it's better than Holy. We're just going to put Ret in C. I don't think it's Swamp. Oh, the Ret tree did have a few changes this week? Oh, dude, I haven't actually looked at the changes. Oh, maybe I can't rate it. I didn't look at the changes. I totally forgot they made changes. I'm just not going to rate it. Didn't they make prot changes too? Oh, no. Actually, I forgot to look at the changes. The only issue I have with prot is, okay, all 3 Paladin trees get docked 1 level by having a choice node with Avenging Wrath Might. Dude, just give them Sentinel and make Avenging Wrath Might baseline, right? Sentinel looks so powerful. It looks so good. Like, I think Prot Paladin is actually... I don't know about the choice they have on this tree as much, but their power level is potentially so high. I think Prot Paladin stonks her up. Is Prot Paladin an A tier? I would say it's not an S tier. I know their stuff doesn't grant holy power anymore, but that's not necessarily a spec tree problem. High B? Low A? What, wasn't there a ridiculous point on here? There's a ridiculous point on this tree that, like, I forget where it is. Maybe they changed it. Nah, whatever. I think Prot Paladin's fine. Lot of dooming going on. I think Prot Paladin, the choice again, I haven't looked at this in forever, but I am gonna rate it just because I think the power level of Prot is higher than it is now. I think with like Sanctified Wrath, maybe Mad Paragon, and Sentinel, you will be an absolute unkillable freak beast. But it's very weird to play on Alpha. Again, I think a lot of the dooming is like the Avenger Shield no holy power bit and the lower cooldown on Shield of the Righteous. But that's not a class tree. That's not a spec tree thing. So, but gameplay's bad. Who knows? Well, oh man, do I not rate it? Nah, we'll rate it. Maybe someone will get upset. All right, Priest. Let's do the healers real quick. I don't remember right away. I remember Disc having like a lot of good options, and then they had like this like Shadow variant for like Mythic Plus. I know they took the silence out of it, but it looked like they had a lot of damn do potential, and they still had the ability to like ramp the same way they do now. But I don't know if they... I don't even remember looking at this tree. It's been so long since I looked at this tree. Disc seemed pretty good. Yeah, woo Disc. They just like slam all these buttons and they're chilling, right? You just pick everything and you're good. Yeah. Okay. Chat, rate Disc for me. Disc gamers. I need some Disc gamers in chat. A's from Disc Priest players. All right. Say less. It's an A. All right. Same thing with Holy Priest. Holy Priest. Holy gamers. Holy Priest class or spec tree. Holy is a solid B. A, S, C, A, B, A, C. C. Why is it bad? What? Okay, C would mean like not nearly enough nodes, not enough choice. Salvageable, but has a few issues. More powerful than it is now, but no choice. Very boring. Very few. Yeah, it does look like a barren class tree. It does look... It looks very barren. Is it barren? 1, 4, 6, 9. Oh, that was a nice. 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 27, 28. Okay, it has like 40 points, but I guess they're just all in the capstone area, like the 2-point talents. You spend the first 9 points buying back baseline spells. A lot of classes do that. The only issue with that is if they are required. Like, you absolutely have to do this. There's no choice whatsoever. The cool thing is being able to skip baseline spells to get things that are potentially powerful that you don't use them for. Oh, I see. So it's just 9 points to the tree. No questions asked. Always take. Okay. What do we got here? I got a lot of priest typing. B, C. Sounds like you guys... I feel like you guys are giving me hard C vibes. You're giving me hard C vibes. Maybe a little better than Guardian. Maybe a little better than Moonkin. Whatever. Dude, people still saying shit like we're spending points to buy back spells, or people who are like discovering we landed on the moon? Well, yes and no. When people are doing that, you have people... Okay, so that's definitely a big doomer take. Right? So like 90% of the time, if you hear someone take, man, why do I have to select something I've had forever? They're just like a WoW doomer, and they're just dooming, right? But then that is an actual criticism where some classes have that worse than others. Where they're not making cool choices and things are different. They're actually just selecting their current build, and they can't drop anything they used to have to amplify other things. They're not gaining a lot of power. They're just spending all of their points on stuff they already have. Oh, by the way, I don't pay attention to the news or politics whatsoever for a lot of reasons. But in the last like 6 months, I've heard a couple of offhand jokes about people joking about how we didn't land on the moon or something like that. It really, and then I like watched a YouTube video on it, and it seems like some flat earth kind of shit. Like very like, you know how like when people start, if you know someone who believes in conspiracies, they don't usually believe in one of them. It's like they collect them like Pokemon. Like it's like dude, you know, like all of them. Is that definitely a thing? It's definitely like flat earth level stuff. Okay, cool. Max, you're a globy, you wouldn't understand. That still makes me laugh. Fucking flat earthers calling people who don't think the earth is flat globies. I think it would be super interesting to like hang out with a bunch of conspiracy dudes for like a short amount of time, like a fly on the wall, and just kind of watch them in their natural habitat. I feel like that would be an absolute trip. Okay, last couple specs here. Or I guess we have a few more. Rogue, Assassination. They have AoE options. Oh, did I skip Shadow Priest? Oh, I'm so sorry. I actually didn't do that on purpose. Like, I know before when I was like, all right, we checked on Hunters and Paladins. Let's go check on the Priest news just so we cover all of our bases. Like, that was a bit. That was clearly intended to, like, you know, kind of, like, throw some fun at, like, Priest players or whatever. But, like, I genuinely did not mean to skip over Priest. I just kind of forgot where I was going. They have a couple... Here's the other thing with Priest, though. So here's the bad part with Priest that I remember. They have so much throughput on their tree that is basically necessary, which means high power, that they don't take VE or dispersion. That's a problem. That should be more accessible. This tree needs major work. Sanguine Teachings still exist to this day. This is now the official low-hanging fruit I can use to shit on every single talent in the game. When they're like, my talent's bad, and I'm just like, yeah, you think your talent's bad? Check this out. It was survival. Survival had it going for a minute with the with this talent. When this one was a 3-pointer and it was 1 yard on melee attacks per point. That one I milked this one as long as I could, but now it is officially back to Sanguine Teachings. The only thing that I'm saying might not make this swamp is there is a lot of really cool, very powerful things at the bottom of the tree. They're just blocked by 2 and 3 point nodes. Since they made the shadow tree, they have kind of thematically across the trees not used a lot of 3-point trees. You might be like, oh well, Max, on this tree there's a 3-pointer. Like there are, I mean, like 10% as many as there were in the initial trees. There's so few of them compared that I think a lot of this stuff will probably be relooked at the bottom. And clearly, if you guys want an update on the Druid and Priest situation, which is clearly the outlier here, apparently the person who was working on the Shadow and Druid trees either quit Blizzard, is taking a break, moving to another project, whatever it was. There was like a tweet, and it doesn't matter what they did. You don't need to clarify that. But they did say that they hope in a tweet that they hope their team finishes up their last project they worked on, the class trees. So the reason it hasn't been getting a lot of attention is because of that, I guess. And it's potentially a good or bad thing if you think the trees weren't that good, which apparently the Disc and Holy One were fine, I guess. Then you could be happy that it's potentially being given to another person, or you could potentially be sad that the tree is now someone's like third responsibility instead of their main thing. Could be good or bad. Are Shadow Priest Doomers? I actually don't know. Like there's differences in communities. Like some communities, like DPS or just spec communities in general in this game, are like really optimistic and they're trying to always convince you that their class is good even when it's not, because they just want to play. And then there's a lot more of them that are like, actually they want their class to be bad so they can complain about it, or at least it seems that way. I just don't know if Shadow's dooming. But also it's hard to tell because some classes have more of a reason to doom than others. Like Shadow's been like a pretty forgotten about spec, and they designed them so well in the past that they had to nerf their design because it was so good instead of nerfing their numbers. But then they like, I don't know, the new version of Shadow Priest isn't not fun to play. It's actually like a pretty good playstyle. There's just like a few things with it that are bad. They're not doomers, they're just doomed. Yeah, their AoE, their AoE isn't great, yeah. Even you forgot about them to rate them. Okay, that was totally different. I like had to run an ad on my stream. Oh, speaking of which, I can take the hashtag ad off of this. Yeah, Shadow Priest. I don't think Shadow Priest is swamp ass, because I think when this gets fixed up, add a couple points in the tree for some choice, get your personal back, and then you're playing with like these different idols. I think Shadow might rip, man. It has a lot of cool shit. It's just not really accessible right now, which I know it's pretty easy to be like, well, why would you rate Shadow Priest for what it could be versus what it is? And then, well, you'd be right. So it's swamp right now, but not as bad as feral, but it's on the come up. It is like reaching out of the swamp, but it's still in there. Moving on to Rogue, finally. Assassination Rogue. 2 charges of Shadow Step. 2 charges of Shiv. Elaborate planning for free just on the way down the tree. A new cooldown that replaces Vendetta that deals damage when you use it on the GCD, and then while it's marked, your Garrote, Rupture, and Lethal Poisons applied to the target are duplicated. So new Vendetta. They gave them Shrouded Suffocation back, the BFA Azerite legendary, or the Azerite from, no, BFA. Not as much of the damage component. It's not as strong damage-wise as having Triple Shrouded, for example, but the 2 extra combo points was an excellent gameplay change. Indiscriminate Carnage. Still don't know exactly how this is going to work. Oh, it actually looks like it's implemented now. I don't know if someone's tried this on the alpha. I am interested on whether Indiscriminate Carnage will apply a Garrote from stealth with Iron Wire. Is it possible that when you use a silenced Garrote, and it obviously duplicates to 8 targets, I wonder if that Garrote is also silenced and it acts as a mass AoE silence? Oh, never mind. The Rogue dev confirmed that he thinks it should work that way. Okay. That is very, very, very good. That is strong. Not busted, but very strong. Busted in some scenarios, overall not busted. Okay, at least in PvE. They're getting access to that. And then also, I'm just going to select some points randomly here. Again, their AoE line and dot line is kind of Shrouded Suffocation, Scent of Blood, which is just Rupture, increasing your AGI by every Rupture you have up for multi-dotting, and also that obviously scales the Indiscriminate Carnage. Your AoE opener could be opening with a Shrouded Suffocation Garrote that with Indiscriminate Carnage that silences all targets, and they also get a 15% DR for 8 seconds. And then on top of that, you'll have 8 stacks of Senna Blood with Rupture while spamming Crimson Tempest. Pretty fucking banger. That sounds insane. Now, if you're not an AoE Lord, they give you a bunch of other stuff. Not to mention in the middle of the tree. Look how many powerful as fuck 1-point options you have in the middle of the tree. Okay? You get Doomblade. Just a 1-point talent off of something lethal dose you will have 100% of the time. Just you know, just like an insane legendary you use this expansion. Just a 1-point talent. Oh wait, it's on the way to Serrated Bone Spike or Stepsis, right? And then you have Maim Mangle on the left, Blindside, just strong 1-point stuff that's not too far away from others. You're allowed to have 2 points or 2 2 poisons with this thing at the bottom called Dragon Tempered Blades, allowing you to get amplifying poison as well as your deadly poison. And it also allows you to have a trophic at the same time as you know, your regular like slow poison or numbing or whatever. And that's down this line. Also going down the left line, you can get Tiny Toxic Blade, honestly, kind of not great. But then Zoldyck, which is your execute. And then you can grab Kingsbane as well. So Assassination Rogue, Assassination Rogue has more applications and content that isn't just a single target or 2 target raid boss for the first time in a long time. Not to mention, maybe something very important that I have not gone into yet, is you get a irreplaceably strong raid cooldown. Currently how this works is it is a 3% damage reduction on the boss, so it doesn't affect environment damage. So just every single boss will affect this differently. Like, for example, if I go to, you know, something here, Castle Nathria, statistics, all bosses, Sludge Fist, all percentiles, whatever. I just need to find a pull. Oh, I need to go to rankings. Sorry, I'm goofing. Castle Nathria rankings, just actually Sludge Fist. Doesn't matter who did it. This guy. Okay, so you go down here and then you look at the damage taken. And then, let's see, taken. Oh, how do I do this? It's taken from ability, right? Okay, so this is the damage taken from the entire raid. I wish I could show it a little better. Okay, Seismic Shift is environment damage. Crumbling Foundation is environment damage. Chain Link is environment damage. Destructive Impact is environment damage. Fractured Impact is environment damage. The only thing on this, whatever it is here, that on Sludge Fist that's doing damage to you that would actually be reduced by a trophic poison is Colossal Roar from Sludge Fist and his melees. That is it. 2 abilities total that would be reduced by 3%. A trophic poison would be useless on Sludge Fist, or basically useless. Kind of. Well, even okay, actually, if you want to make the argument about how good a trophic poison is, something else you can do as a rogue. I'm sorry, I made this so small. Something else you can do as a rogue is you can shiv, and your atrophic poison will be amplified to give you, I think, if you take all the talents associated with it, a 7% increase for the duration of shiv. Some players have mentioned that this is potentially really annoying because they will not be able to... They're going to have to hold shiv for damage events at some point in the fight, which is kind of true. But just imagine Assassination Rogue, a DPS class, potentially while they already have shiv up normally. I think in 90% of cases, you're not going to have to hold shiv for damage reduction. You're going to use it for damage and it's going to work. Like, I really think that's not a problem. Or you can just remove the shiv part of it. That probably makes a lot more sense. Even reducing, if you guys did progression on Sludge Fist, reducing the damage of Colossal Roar by 7% each cast would be insane. And that was still such a small amount of the damage you're taking on this fight, right? Now, most fights do not look like this. Most fights, the things that are killing you is not source of the environment. Sludge Fist is the most extreme example, and even in the most extreme example, it would still be good, because what kills you in a raid is not passive damage. It is hard-hitting damage combined with passive damage that turns lethal. That is what kills you. So even in the worst-case scenario, it would still be powerful. I would even make the argument that I think Atrophic Poison should be class-wide. I've made this argument a million times. But I love what they did with this spec. I think this is insane. I think, and there's choice too. Like I think you'd play different things in different content. I think it's just an absolute banger. It's in such an awkward spot as well. Not really, because like you want Venomous Wounds on the way, but yeah. I'm gonna put it in S tier. I think Assassination has one of the best spec trees in the entire game. Even with 3-pointers? Even with 3-pointers. Yep. 3-pointers are not objectively bad, like I said. I think most scenarios you could argue that it would just be better to have a 2-pointer and then another 1-point option somewhere, I guess. But what a lot of devs do in the bottom of their class tree is they put 3-point nodes there to prevent you from getting all of your capstones. There needs to be a barrier. And it's not like they don't have insane stuff at the bottom of their tree. They do. Outlaw gains Shadow Dance. It no longer gets reduced. I remember James had like a couple issues with this, I think, on the way down the tree. It's like playing Sublaw, I guess. Oh, 10% stand. That's insane. You get Restless Blades. I think they had one of the coolest additions. I think this is like one of the coolest things. Count the odds. I think something like this kind of exists right now, where Ambush and Dispatch have a 20% chance to grant you a Roll the Bones combat enhancement buff that you do not already have for 5 seconds, but you're also gaining Shadow Dance. And then you have an insanely cool capstone ability that I'm just going to fill in a couple of things just to kind of show it off. Restless Crew. We'll come back to this in a second. Just Dispatcher and keep it rolling. It's on a 5-minute cooldown, obviously reduced by normal Outlaw CDR with Restless Blades. And it increases the remaining duration on your active Roll the Bones combat enhancements by 30 seconds. So in your opener with Shadow Dance, you could just like bang out an insane amount of buff, and it's like always kind of changing. Like you are, when Keep It Rolling is up, you are actively trying to like find a good thing and then extend it. I don't know. It just seems so good. And so fun to play. This makes me want to play Outlaw. I think this was one of the best things they've added this expansion. And apparently you can play like no Roll the Bones too, and it's not bad. I don't know too much about like the left side of this tree. I know James went over it with me. I haven't played Outlaw in a long time. But yeah, apparently there's a lot of cool stuff. And then Restless Crew. They gave Restless Blades basically affecting party members, and it reduces the major cooldown, the cooldown of a major offensive ability by 0.2 seconds per combo point. So every time you spend a finisher, you reduce the cooldown of their major offensive ability by 1 second. It's very hit or miss whether this is important for you or not, as far as other classes in the game. Classes that have really good versions of this. This is good for Fire Mage. It's good for old Demo. Interestingly enough, new Demo, I don't know if they would actually want this, because new Demo is like kind of choosing to play this like 3-minute burst build at the bottom, and then you want your Demonic Tyrant to come up every single time on that 3 minutes, so you just alternate every other. Unless you could get Restless Blades to get this down, 30 seconds every minute and a half, basically, then maybe you would do it right, but it's also like it doesn't really line up, so I don't know like how that would work. But I'm just trying to think of classes that would be absolutely insane with Restless Crew. Most classes, it's like very mediocre, and it usually messes up their cooldown timing, so it's not that good. Like Frosty K, actually with the new charge system on Empowered Room Weapon, it would be quite good for Frosty K, I guess. Either way, I think, so first of all, I think there's no chance that this stacks. I think it will be, like, if there's any effect of this in the party, it will only work on one Outlaw Rogue. If you have 5 Outlaw Rogues, you will not have 5 people doing it. Don't ask me about how they would code that. I just think that's so obviously broken that that would not ever make it into the game. The ability would be nerfed or changed if that was ever a thing. I mean, there's a reason this hasn't been implemented. Currently, people are just going off of the tooltip. If the tooltip is reducing 5 people's cooldowns by a minute, they're just going to make this not as good. I imagine they want this to be, like, about as powerful as picking like Night Fae Fairies on one player, but split between 4 others. And that could still be pretty good. And like kind of value, especially on a fight. I really think there's been a lot of overreaction to this ability. Because again, not only is it not yet implemented, but like if this goes live, it's like super broken. They're just going to nerf the hell out of it. By the way, I think this is cool. I think it's going to be really fun to play around with this and see what classes benefit from it the most. Question is, where does Outlaw go? I'm thinking A, maybe S. It's high A no matter what. I mean, it sounds like an absolute blast. Assassination definitely seems better, but yeah. Okay, now sub. Chat, I know almost nothing about sub. I think people are going to bring a lot of class tree stuff into this as well. One thing that feels bad about sub is sub is the only class that's not getting raid or party utility. They gave them Shrouded in Darkness, which makes it sound like your Shroud of Concealment as a sub-rogue will actually become a stampeding roar for players during its duration. But apparently that was never the intent. I think the rogue dev clarified to the rogue Discord that this is actually only supposed to be for out of combat because it wasn't affecting people who are in combat. So that means sub now has no raid or party utility and the other two specs do, and both of them are powerful, which means that sub currently is most likely outside of Mythic Plus and PvP, the third rogue in your raid if sub is ever good. Even if sub is the best DPS in the game, it's the third rogue in the raid. And that's really weird because it's very unlikely for all of that to be true. Again, that's not as much about the total spec tree, and we should probably leave that out of it. I just think that's a major, major flaw right now. So I just don't know. I don't know enough about sub to actually feel. I haven't played sub in years. Need some rogue takes here. Need some rogue takes. I need some actual rogue players to speak. C and B. C, B, B. Okay. Just so I don't rate it incorrectly, is it true that sub got a lot of good changes, like not super recently, but like in general, and those were good? I feel like a lot of the C people might be judging it from when they first looked at it. Okay, let's put it in B. So overall, Rogue so far has done the best job of any spec. They have an S, an A, and a B. What's the next best one? Druid has B, C, C, Swamp. Priest has A, C, Swamp. Hunter has A, B, can't rate yet. That's pretty solid, actually. Hunter's way up there. DK has A, B, can't rate yet. So, again, DK is potentially really good. Moving on, what's the next class? Oh, baby. Oh, fucking wow. If it isn't the LE tree. I've talked about this enough, but I'm not going to go over all of it. I'm just going to go over the highlights of this tree of why it's so good. 2 charges of Stormkeeper feels so good, especially when you have reduction through Flash of Lightning. AoE Frost Shock is insane. Their movement is insane, and it's so much better than it was. They actually made really good changes from an already great tree to give Primordial Wave proper buttons under it that make it more viable. I think maybe, and I'm not kidding, the singular best thing that has been added to this expansion as far as fun is the deeply rooted elements or Ascendance in combination with Further Beyond, where you're extending Ascendance to durations of upwards of 45 seconds. It gives them an entirely new damage profile. It's cool as fuck. It's really powerful. And then and that's not even it. On the right, they have all their Flame Shock talents, which gives you way more Flame Shock integration than ever before, including Funnel, an insane amount of Maelstrom generation from Flame Shock stuff. Like you should see it on PTR. You could just sit there and Flame Shock 4 targets and just use Spenders, and your Maelstrom is rocketing up every single time. It's insane. Yeah, it's S tier. LE Shaman is a slam dunk. Best spec in the game, in my opinion. Or best tree in the game. Enhancement is next. Another spec, which has a bunch of cool builds that you haven't been able to do before, that also gets all of its like insane legendary powers back as very simple 1-point talents, has good builds for AoE and Mythic Plus, also has a rethought Ascendance that makes Ascendance just absolutely cracked like single target cooldown. I think Enhancement is also S tier. I don't know if it's better or worse than Assassination. I know they recently changed Cloudburst to be 45 seconds, but stronger than its when it was released in alpha, but the same thing as it is on live. This is very similar to what they did to Ellie. What they did to Ellie was they added multiple more ways for you to AoE than Earthquake. So they nerfed Earthquake, so other spells are more of a part of your AoE. They're going to tune all this shit later. I don't even think they've even begun to think about tuning classes up and down with all the new changes. There's going to be so much of that because of all these new abilities, to where I think they also did this with Cloudburst. They want Cloudburst to be the same power it is right now. They just don't want it to be as much of a part of your kit and something more, I mean, it's literally 50% longer cooldown. I remember Mavie being very happy with this tree, and he suggested a few changes, and I think a few of them got made. Nearly perfect, but a few things need to be changed. So the question is Resto Shaman an S tier behind Enhancement or an A tier above Outlaw? Like, what are they getting back? Are they just like, I forget. I know they had a lot of choice in the capstone area, which was cool. I remember he said Earth Living Weapon was a total meme, and that's on the tree, right? And it's not even an option. Like, he said you would basically never play this. It's not fun. And then he also said there was something else here that was weird. Isn't there a talent where casting Chain Heal on a target affected by Riptide consumes it, and that's like terrible design? You never want to play this. Oh yeah, they gave them Acid Rain and Stormkeeper though. That's pretty baller. I mean, it's like a push, right? It's like the highest A tier or it's the lowest S. I want to say highest A. This tree has noticeable problems that are not there in the enhanced and LE tree, but it's still very good. I think it's A. High A. That's fine. On to Warlock. Affliction. So, I don't know if you guys were here for the talk yesterday, but Affliction Warlocks have, I think, the most globals you have to play in a single target environment. It's like absolute astrophysics to play this class. And also, it's like bad. They said it's like pretty bad design, too. This class tree needs God. I don't know if it's... I think it might be D, actually. Because they mentioned a few other things that could help, too. Like, there was bad pathing, there was bad talents. But also, it's just kind of new, and sometimes people are super doomer about new things. But it has really powerful new AoE options. They said, like, you're going to have basically Legion levels of M+ level of AoE. That's an insane power change. That means it can't be D. Probably C. Needs some work. Even if you like the AoE and you're excited about it, there's still so many issues. Destro? Or Demo's next, I guess. Demo looks fucking crazy. It's like a stronger pet build than you've ever had before, and your single target build's the same as AoE except for like 3 things, and all those 3 things are like really powerful. Demo's probably S tier. Also, the Demo person made this tree look like a skull. Look at it. The Demo skull. Most of the time when they path down the tree, they ignored Doom, but they said on a multiple target fight, you could definitely take Doom and Kazak's Final Curse, which would really synergize with your demon build. Demonic Tyrant is now, instead of a massive Tyrant every 2 minutes, it's a even more massive Tyrant every 3 minutes, and it's a 1.5 minute cooldown in between. But it is a turbo 3 minute, like it owns. I'm going to say Demo's probably S. I don't think it's as good as those. Because the only other thing is, like, there isn't too much choice. There's also a couple of really bad pathing nodes, I think. They mentioned how their demon... It doesn't really matter because they don't really want to play this build, but their demon bolt talents, like Sacrifice Souls and Bale Spiders, all that stuff is very spread out and, like, kind of hard to get at the same time. And the stuff that interacts with it is, like, you can't really build a build out of it. So you're kind of forced into, like, a very similar kind of build, but it's just a way crazier build that you currently do of Demo. So maybe it's A. As soon as you can say forced, it's A. Yeah. Destro. I don't know how you feel about the Mayhem versus Havoc thing. I think it's fine that they put choice. As long as it's a choice node, it's totally fine if they're putting a noob version of Havoc in the game that is not as good, but easier to play. They said that in single target, you're going to be playing Soulfire, or not single target, but like in like 1 to 2 target, you'd be playing Soulfire and Channel Demon Fire, which on an already immobile spec is going to be playing a 45-second Soulfire that's getting reduced under 50% health by 5 seconds every cast. So it'll be every 5th or 6th spell you cast is a 4-second Soulfire, while also a 3-second channel of Channel Demon Fire. Pretty cursed playstyle for like 1 to 2 targets. They still have Shadowburn, which is like pretty situational. They take this stuff near the bottom. Fire and Brimstone, super under realized, and they even have a node near the bottom of the tree that kind of interacts with it. But their stuff at the bottom, they still get Reign of Chaos. No more Wilfords though. They can do the haste build, which is down here Ritual of Ruin, Avatar, and Madness, or they can do the mastery build where they would go Power Overwhelming and Chaos Incarnate. Well, you'd always take 2 of that as well. So I think they have options. It's definitely not S tier. Their AoE capability is just as big of a burst as it is now. It's just a 3-minute cooldown instead of a 2-minute cooldown. It's kind of the same idea as Demo. And then their single target and 2 target cleave or their 2-target cleave is like the same as it's been for a couple expansions, which is usually the best target swapping class in the game. Anytime a target spawns on a single target boss and has to be killed, probably maybe the most common raid niche, they have, generally speaking, been the best at killing mobs like that need to die in under 10 seconds with Havoc. It's really good, but the Soulfire stuff kind of feels bad. It's not as good as Demo. So it's probably low A, I think. Well, but they also have Flashpoint again in Cleave and Immolate duration as well. They have a lot of options. They use almost their whole tree except for the Sack node. That's actually pretty impressive. Also, Combusting Engine is a bad node. But they use almost their entire tree except for Sack. I think it's also A. You guys think Demo should be B tier? Why? I think Demo's good. All the Warlocks were nutting about playing Demo that I was talking to yesterday. I think both high A sounds right. Okay, either way, moving on to Warrior. Arms Warrior. Less issues than Fury currently. Arms Warrior cannot be S, and the reason why is because sharpened blades and blunt instruments exists. I think this is a huge fucking problem, actually. Mortal Strike, Tactician, Improved Execute, Mortal Strike, Martial Prowess, Improved Overpower. Arms Tree feels a little bad because, like, I guess you don't have to select it, but, like, both of these builds, both Fueled by Violence and Blood Surge, it's kind of just like, you know, a Blood Surge may be an AoE, but yeah, this seems really rough. Arms Warrior have Skull Banner back, potentially good, who knows. A couple of stuff over here, like Fatality, looked really good. But the big problem is at the bottom. They have sharpened blades and blunt instruments. I just think it's such a weird lore thing to try to make class design be involved with this. What happens if you're Test of Might, and Test of Might is what you want to play, or Test of Might is the best, but you just loot the fattest sword of all time, or axe, and then you just have a 30% reduced duration on Colossus Smash? And now Test of Might is no longer better. I feel like that's so weird. The weapon requirement of this has to be removed. So nowhere near S, maybe B. I feel like the capstone stuff for Warrior is also just still kind of not interesting. I think Arms Warrior is probably a solid B for Spec. Fury Warrior. But Fury Warrior has a lot of good options, but there's not enough things that buff Raging Blow and way too many things that buff Bloodthirst. Blizzard came out and said they want Single-Minded Fury to be a very easy, much easier version of the class than Titan's Grip. They want Titan's Grip to always be better competitively. Single-Minded Fury to be something you can play if you want. Is easier to play and is for beginners. They've done this with a few other specs in the game. But yeah, it's a little strange. Especially because so much of the tree is committed to it. But something that I found interesting is that I was talking to Warlocks and they were like, dude, I would have loved that. I would love if part of your tree is I can just ignore. There's no difference between the two other than damage. Yeah, there was. Okay, so yes, but what they were saying before was they wanted Single-Minded Fury to be more like auto attack based or something. Yeah, here it is. If you actually select Single-Minded Fury, you might be, or there was at least some like theory crafting about doing a build with auto attacks with one-handed weapons. These are specifically for Single-Minded Fury. These talents over here do not really interact with Titan's Grip at all. And then they kind of built even like the left side of this tree kind of with that in mind. It's just like an auto attack build, which also makes you think that like Berserker Rage would be better because it increases the damage of your auto attacks, but it isn't even still better in that case than Battle Stance. Little weird thing about the tree, in my opinion, but Max, they said they were making Titan's Grip baseline, which is a pretty big change to the tree. Can't rate. Okay, I didn't know that. Last class for today, almost done. Protection Warrior. I think Prot Warrior is cracked as fuck. I think their tree is actually busted. Booming Voice again, Devastate, Strategist, Brace for Impact, Devastator, Shield Wall, The Wall, Anger Management, Enduring Defenses, although you don't necessarily have to take that. Challenging Shout, the ability to have Challenging Shout be a 6-second lockout and interrupt AoE around you in a 10-yard radius. Fueled for Violence, feels really bad to take this, probably the worst part of the tree, but you will take it to go through Bolster and skip these two choice. This node, Spiked Shield, and this choice node are both bad, but it doesn't matter because everything else is goated. And you have a couple more points to move down. It's like 4 more or something. You're gonna grab Thunderlord every time, just like back in Legion, or was it PFA? I forget when that was a thing. I think it was Legion. Then you'll probably play Into the Fray, especially early expansions, but I think heavier percussions with Enduring Defenses has a lot of application. At least they didn't brick this tree, so I can see it. Then even still, you have 1 point to kind of throw around in what you think would be good to move on. I don't even... What do you even spend this on? Blood Surge. Sorry. I remember this being a choice for later. So you go Blood Surge, and with the Prot Warriors, again, now in the class tree, playing Rend and Blood and Thunder again. I mean, you're just going to have so much Rage Gen. Each one of these nodes feels weird, because the first one is worth so much more than the second one. The first one increases... Oh, it does go up by 2 each time now. Then you have Spell Block, very situational, Indomitable, which is required. Battle Scarred Veteran, super overpowered right now. Will need to be changed. Outburst there, Ravager, and Ravager duration. And then after this, it is just straight choice. You could also not have Ravager duration and just go 2 points into the Stamina Armor by 10%. That's probably just what you take. And Haste by 4. Spell Block, super situational, but pretty powerful. Shield Charge is a little under-realized. But Prot Warrior, even with removing Die by the Sword from their class tree, Prot Warrior is a significantly stronger version than what they are currently with this class tree, both damage-wise and defensiveness. I'm struggling to rate it as an S, though, because there are a few points on this tree you would never take. Best Serve Cold is fine. Show of Force is fine. In fact, they interact with each other. Improved Challenging Shout can be situational. The parry node's kind of whatever. Why do you have a parry node when, like, the whole thing of Warrior is blocking and, like, you parry isn't... It's, you know, it's just kind of weird. Parry isn't bad, but, like, yeah. Spiked Shield, just a total non-interactive thing. Doesn't really matter. Improved Heroic Throw, kind of weird. Brutal Vitality, never take this. Unnerving Focus is great, but you don't take it. There's a couple bad nodes in the tree. Shield Charge seems a little bit undercooked. But other than that, tree's insane. So if it's S, it goes low S. Now, chat. I want you guys... The fun part of this is I want you all to guess where you think the remaining 5 specs will be as far as their spec tree. I'll do them one at a time. I think 2 of them are very obvious to me. Okay, let's start with Monk. Let's start with Brewmaster. What kind of spec tree do you guys think Brewmaster will have? I think it's A or S guaranteed. Brewmaster has so many buttons, so many old things that could come back that are good. I think it'd be almost impossible to fuck up Brewmaster spec tree, honestly. So I'm going to say Brewmaster is probably going up to S somewhere. Or A. I just think... Okay, obviously, like, it could have a lot of tools and then have bad pathing. Mistweaver. What do you guys think about Mistweaver? You guys think they're going to make it Swamp? I feel like there's a lot of ways to make Mistweaver not Swamp, though. Like, they could... I feel like Mistweaver has some very... I feel like Mistweaver's almost carved out a niche, and, like, I think you could have Dragon as, like, a capstone and then, like, a couple of nodes that make it better and more interesting than it is now. I think that's, like, a potential cool playstyle. It's, like, a super big burst cooldown. I don't know, man. I could see them cooking some cool shit up for Mistweaver. They could swamp it, though. I would say Mistweaver's probably going to be, like, okay. All right, Windwalker. Okay, so I have major hopium for this. I think Windwalker, it's very like Feast or Famine. It's going to be an insane tree, or it's going to be exactly what Windwalkers don't want. The thing is with Windwalker is Windwalker actually has really good talents that they don't currently use. So when Windwalker, if you like log into a Windwalker, right? Their actual talent row currently, you play things that you've always played and they feel baseline. But there's other things on that row that are super interesting gameplay-wise. They're not bad designed talents. They're just not tuned well. I'm not excusing Blizzard of not tuning them well, because they should have done better with that. But, like, they're good and they're interesting. Like, Serenity is interesting. It is very possible you could have clones and Serenity. It's very possible Tiger Eye Brew comes back. It's very possible that you're able to take clones reduction while also having Whirling Dragon Punch. It's possible Whirling Dragon Punch is just a baseline ability. I think the worst decision Blizzard could make is making Whirling Dragon Punch some kind of capstone. That's ridiculous. It is... Whirling Dragon Punch at this point is as fundamental to the Windwalker class as Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury are. It's just the class. So I really hope they do that. That would be like step number 1 of what I'm looking at. Strike of the Windlord could come back. They have like some old really cool legendaries. They even have some current legendaries that are fun to play around and think about, but you just don't take it because Evokers is just so much haste, which is also your worst stat, but it's just so much of it that it's so good. Like, I think Windwalker will probably be S tier, but that's a little hopium. I absolutely understand the take where you think Windwalker will be bad, but I think Windwalker just has so many tools, man. It has so many tools to be good. It has, like, if you're talking about, like, how easy it is to make these things, dude, Shamans were built diff. Shamans actually have more buttons than other classes, and, like, it was pretty easy for them to make a pretty robust class tree without a lot of filler. Windwalkers are that, but they're a melee. So, yeah, I'm ready to be let down by this. I'm fully on the board that Windwalker's tree is going to be pretty fucking sick. Also, I'm insanely into Windwalker right now, so I'll have a lot of fun looking at that. What's really cool is the next two class trees that come out are two classes that I've played a lot of, where the last couple that have come out I actually have not played that much of. Demon Hunter. Okay, before you guys say Swamp, the Demon Hunter developer is the same developer as Rogue. The Rogue trees are very good. The only problem with Demon Hunter is that they've only existed in the era of borrowed power. Just like Evoker is unable to be seen without the class trees because they were born with it, right? Demon Hunter has only existed during borrowed power. Everything they've ever been given, basically, outside of a few abilities, was designed to be taken away. And even the stuff they gave them usually is not super interesting. They've kept it to be, and in my opinion, on purpose, a very easy class to play. With, to their credit, a very, very fun and very cool rotational thing, Momentum, that is much more difficult to play. Used to be a lot more difficult than it is now, but certainly more challenging than Blind Fury Demonic. That is not something you have to take and is still there for players who want to play the easy version of it, but is there for a little bit of a challenge. Ew, Momentum. Dude, if you guys hate, I promise you Momentum's coming back. There's no way they can remove something they have now with how many things that, like, they are begging for things to come back. I think things that are almost certain to come back with Demon Hunter. I think Vengeance Demon Hunter will gain Darkness, which I think is a good change. I see no reason why it shouldn't have it. Should have had it for the last 4 years. I think potentially sigils, especially utility sigils, might be moved into the class tree. I think Havoc will be getting Bloodlet back. That's it. That's the end. That's the end of my takes. That's all I think is likely. Oh, the Hunt. Yeah, the Hunt is a sick ability. It's also pretty thematic. What do we think with Vengeance, guys? Vengeance's class tree. Is Vengeance, like, maybe the most bland spec in the whole game? Like, I feel like Vengeance is just, like, it's just kind of there. Like, what could they even do to make this super interesting? Yeah, Guardian's a bit more bland, but that's on purpose. Okay, and now Havoc. I think Havoc is going to be... I don't think people are going to be satisfied with Havoc. Number one, for Havoc being a one-spec... Like, so many Demon Hunters are just one-spec Havoc players, as opposed to, like, Hunters, which, like, a lot of them play multiple specs of their class. I think Havoc might be one of the most populated single-spec classes in the entire game. Like, DPS Demon Hunters might be as big of, like, a community as any other class's, like, single-spec thing. Like, there's a ton of them, man. I saw this recently on the thing, the Mythic Plus accessibility Reddit thing. Max, in Warlords of Draenor, MM Hunter was 20% of the entire population. That sounds very made up. That sounds unbelievably made up. No way Havoc is D, at least high C, low B. Why? Dude, the Havoc dev said that to not hold your breath. Which isn't surprising, by the way. I think Havoc is going to be the hardest tree to make in the entire game. Like I said before, classes that are easy to make class trees relatively. Classes with a ton of fucking buttons and a ton of buttons from the past they can bring back. And really good talents that are not currently used but have good gameplay. Demon Hunters have none of that. Like, they actually have nothing. Like, they're going to have to just make shit up out of thin air. Or just have a million 5-point nodes on their tree. Havoc is just going to be Sinful Brand maintenance simulator for all of Dragonflight. I think they already clarified that Sinful Brand will not be returning. By the way, I don't play Demon Hunter right now, but that looks like the most unfun shit of all time. They're bringing back Twilight Dev and Infinite Stars for Havoc. Dude, Twilight Dev would be sick for Havoc.
Holy shit. Bring back Twilight Dev for both Vengeance and Havoc. Fuck yeah. That's insane. Twilight Dev was so fun, man. That shit was so fun. What do you mean, please no? What's bad about Twilight Devastation? What's bad about that at all? I feel like you're just like, oh my god, that he just mentioned corruption. Dude, there was a lot of corruption shit that was really fun to play. The RNG was... I don't think the RNG in Twilight Dev was so bad. Yeah, like some pulls you popped off. Some pulls you didn't. You got like usually a decent amount of procs though. It probably did too much damage. They would just make it do less. Anyways, I think it'd be cool. Just imagine just a fucking shadow tornado. Twilight Devastation RNG is nothing compared to Windwalker Monk RNG. Dude, I did not even realize that. I didn't realize how bad Windwalker RNG was now until I played it again recently. They like added a second Chi-Ji element. Like getting Bone Dust Brew procs is just as RNG as Chi-Ji. Actually, that's not true. Chi-Ji is much more powerful. But like, it's still, you know, like pretty noticeable. Max, is there any reason why you can't rate those 5 specs? Yeah, they're not like fully implemented yet, and they announced changes that are not currently in the game. Or I think in Ret Paladin's case, I just hadn't gotten a chance to look at it yet. I didn't want to make something up. Okay, that's it. That's enough for the tier list. Amen.